Hello, one and all, and welcome to the podcast we call the Fantastival with myself, Steve Nussbaum. In the podcast, I invite my guests to come on and talk to me all about their musical taste, their memories, their experiences, and they get to collect their fantasy festivals, which I have christened Fantastivals. Hope everyone is well. Hope everyone had a lovely bank holiday as we are now in June as 2024 continues to fly by and the summer is almost here. And before we start this one, just say a massive thank you to Chris Griffiths from The Real People. He was my last guest in episode 165. It was great to speak to Chris. Great lineup. Great band. So if you haven't listened to that, please go back and listen to that one in our Fantastival Vaults. You will not be sorry. So that was 165. It's time to introduce our guest on this one, 166. And I'm delighted to introduce somebody who has been chosen as a Fantastival headliner. I think this might be our first ever headliner who's been on the podcast. She was chosen back in episode 159, CV full of incredible acts that we're going to try and cover. Not only a fine guitarist and vocalist, but producer as well. It can only be the one and only Charley Stone.
Hi.
Charley.
Here I am.
Here you are. It's great to have you on the podcast. I'm so happy to have you on. Can't wait to talk about music with you and see what comes out of your fantasy festival. But before we do, always like to check in with my guests and talk about how they're feeling from a mental health perspective. It's really important. So to start off with, Charley, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good today. It's been a nice sunny day and I've had lots of energy the last day or two, which is good because I've got long COVID actually. So I do have quite a lot of days where I have no energy and feel quite low. And I had one of those on Saturday, but then energy all came back yesterday. Today's Monday, still feeling great. So all good.
So taking it one day at a time then?
Yeah, pretty much. How about you?
Yeah, all good. So far, so good this week. Another week and more stuff to be doing. So it's always good to, I think, introduce people with that question. I feel like it's a really important thing that people maybe don't talk about as much as they should. All right, Charley, let me take you back then to when you were younger. What do you remember about your earliest musical memories?
Earliest musical memories was the sound of music. Literally just that. I mean, no, not literally just that. We used to have Radio 2 on a lot in my house, but apart from that, I mean, my parents didn't have a record collection or anything. My parents weren't really big on bands, but we had the album of the Sound of Music soundtrack, and I was obsessed with it. I used to just listen to that album over and over and over. That's my earliest memory of music. Yeah.
A timeless. Do you go back to it now at all? Because it's on TV like every couple of months. It's always back on the telly. You find yourself watching it and back in that in the world of young Charley?
Occasionally. I mean, I have watched a lot of times in my life by this point, including a lot of times in my adult life. And I think as the years go by, I've got less and less of a need to watch it again. I think I still know all the lyrics by heart, though.
Maybe a bonus track on a forthcoming album in somewhere along the way. You never know. So when did you first start getting into music in yourself, Charley? When did that kind of start hitting your world?
Quite late, really, because most of my friends, when I speak about this, most people seem to have got into like pop music, you know, when they were about, I don't know, 9 or 10 or earlier. And I didn't really. But when I first went to high school, 1983 was when I started watching Top of the Pops. And the key thing that I remember is one day watching Top of the Pops. It must have been only about the 4th or 5th episode I'd ever watched of it. And they had Duran Duran, not in the studio. They showed the video for Union of the Snake. And I was totally mesmerised. And that is definitely the key moment where I was like, oh my God, what is this? I want in on this, you know? Because they were, I mean, I don't know if have you seen the video to Union of the Snake?
I don't think so. I've seen many Duran Duran videos, but it doesn't leap out at me.
So this one, it's kind of almost like a Mad Max video. That they're in the desert. They've had a crash in a car, and then Simon Le Bon is taken down in this lift under the ground into this like place under the desert where there's all these mad creatures and it's just because the song is about the subconscious mind. You know, it's kind of got those kind of weird lyrics all about you know, the Union of the Snake is on the climb, and it's but they just show these kind of very glamorous, pretty men in this desert descending underneath the desert into this kind of fantasy realm. And it's just hearing this very layered music, because I think Duran Duran's third album, Seven and the Ragged Tiger, it's got loads of, I think Nick Rhodes was sort of a key, he was sort of probably mainly responsible for that. I think this was in their real coke days. You know, they'd had the massive success with Rio. They were all millionaires and they were all going off the rails a bit in different ways. But Nick was just like holding it together in the studio and putting layers of synths on things. So it's this really layered, quite sexy sound that just sounded to me like kind of, it sounded like the night. It sounded like nighttime, but it sounded like a nighttime that was full of lights and incredible things. And it was like incredible kind of like dreamlike things, futuristic and dreamlike. I just remember watching it and thinking it was like they'd kind of created their own world around themselves. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to dream my own world around me, you know?
It's a pretty cool story. So when did you get your first instrument in? Did that your first instrument follow after seeing that video, or was it, again, a few years until that fell into your arms?
It was a few years after, because from watching that and getting into Duran Duran especially, and all the other bands I got into around that time, I wanted to play synths. I wanted to be Nick Rhodes. Right. And of course, synths were, you know, quite expensive pieces of kit then, and even just like a Casio keyboard was out of my budget. You know, we were very poor in my family. And just at some point when I was about 16, I thought, sod this, I'm just going to get a guitar. And a girl at my youth club was selling her old Spanish guitar for like 20 quid. And I thought, I'll just buy that and I'll learn to play that. And I got it, taught myself to play it, and then saved up and bought a really, really, really cheap, very difficult to play electric guitar. And I was just a guitarist then. That was it. It was by necessity. I didn't want to be a guitarist. I wanted to be like Brian Eno or Nick Rhodes with like banks of synths making all these amazing noises. But I just became a guitarist. Did
it come quite naturally to you? Because you seem like a very natural guitarist in the video clips that I've seen. Did it come naturally, or did you really have to work at it to get it out of you?
Bit of both, because I think it came natural. I was surprised at how it felt natural. I think because I'd learnt violin as a kid, right. And so I was kind of used to sort of using these fingers on a fretboard. Interestingly, I'm left-handed, but I play guitar the right way round in inverted commas. And I think it's because with violin, you have to play the violin that way round. In an orchestra, you can't have one person bowing the other way. You know, you learn to play that way. So I kind of learned to use those fingers doing that. And yeah, I just got, but certainly when I got the electric guitar, because I got very short fingers as well. And I found that holding a chord on an electric guitar, and especially the guitar I had, was so badly set up, and it was really hard to hold a chord on. I think I spent about 6 months training my hands to be able to hold a bar chord on that, and I mean literally training it. But I was determined. It's like, I'm going to do this. But once I kind of I kind of trained my hands to go in weird shapes that it really. Like this, the first finger is quite short, I think, and I've kind of worked out a way that I can do a bar chord in the way that it's the kind of proper way. You're supposed to do it with your finger across the strings, but mostly I do it the alternate way, which is you sort of have your hand tilted at an angle, your thumb comes over the top, and you do it that way around. And I don't know, there was a lot in the early days of really training this hand to do stuff and practicing sometimes for hours at a time. But the reason I did that was because it did actually feel like, oh, okay, this makes sense to me, the guitar, actually. I'd kind of done that by mistake, but I get it. It was, but yeah, just doing, there were certain things that were a lot of hard work, but I was determined to do it.
And I guess once you learn on a guitar that isn't well set up, once you get a guitar that is well set up, it must feel like a lot easier, and then you're halfway there.
Kinda. I mean, yes, definitely, but also you have kind of learnt bad habits. You've kind of you've got a very tense way of playing, so I then had to sort of learn to loosen up a bit. But yeah, in the end, after many years of many hours, it becomes second nature, and it feels like an extension of your body, doesn't it?
It certainly does. All right, I mentioned you in lots of acts. When I was doing my research, I was quite surprised at the volume of acts that you've been in. I want to do kind of like a quick fire, mention an act to you, and you give me a kind of like a sentence of that time and your memories or your experiences in that.
Okay.
All right. I guess we'll try. I don't know if you've done this before. You maybe have, maybe haven't. So I guess,
no, I haven't. Also, I've got to say, you said you've done your research. I know for a fact nowhere on the internet has all the bands that I've been in. I know for a fact. But I mean, like, there are so many bands, and whenever I look at a thing, I'm like, there's loads missing, loads. Anyway, so go for it.
I bet. All right. First one I've got listed is Frantic Spiders.
That's my first proper band. It wasn't my first actual band. It's the first one that's like, this is my band. We're going to be famous.
Toxic.
So we're going to be the female U2.
Almost. Toxic shock syndrome.
I've got to think of a phrase. Oh God. Short-lived. Well, from my point of view, side project. It wasn't a short-lived side project. It was basically Ron, who was the drummer in Frantic Spiders, wanted to do a different thing, and I was like, okay, I'll play guitar for you, and we did it as a duo to begin with, and then she went and actually got a band, and I stopped it. Anyway, that's not really a succinct sentence. I didn't really know what else to say about that one.
No, it's all good. I appreciate you're on the spot with some of these. I guess a bigger one, and you can talk as much about this because I don't think you can probably sum this up, is Salad.
Yeah, Salad was when my first proper band, Frantic Spiders, split up. I was like, what do I do now? And I was persuaded by some friends, including Debbie Smith, Debbie Smith wasn't actually my friend at the time, but I did know her. And she actually got me audition with Salad. She was like, you're a good guitarist, just join another band, figure out what you want to do. So I went for an audition with Salad, not knowing anything about them really. And we just clicked on first meeting. And yeah, I joined them as a live guitarist and keyboard player and sampler triggerer and backing vocalist. And then I joined as a proper member of the band. And then we lost the deal with Ireland and split up. And then 20 years later, reformed and actually recorded stuff and released albums together.
That's amazing. I guess to do the whole 20 years later thing, how does that feel? That I guess you've kind of kept those relationships up for that amount of time, and you've.
No, we hadn't. I hadn't been in touch with them in
really?
years. I just got a call from Morena. Kind of just going, look, we've been offered this gig, but we've been offered it only if the band actually reforms. And she was really tentative, like, would you do it? And I was like, yes, I will do it. Because, as somebody that had joined the band as a live member and then had been like, okay, let's write with us. Let's like do stuff. And we'd written all these songs and we'd never released them. It felt like unfinished business. I'd really loved that band, but I'd never actually got to record anything with them. And also I had just loved touring with them, and it was like the idea of playing with them again and, going on tour again, but also actually releasing some stuff that we'd written as a 5-piece. It was thank you, universe, for like giving it back to me,
That's great to hear. Night Nurse?
Oh, Night Nurse was my friend Elliot's band that Charlotte Hatherley was the guitarist in. And around the time that Salad was not quite split up, but we didn't have a record deal, Charlotte left Night Nurse to join Ash, of course. And Night Nurse, who were about to sign a deal themselves, and they were about to record a single, needed a guitarist. And Elliot was like, come and join my band. And I loved Night Nurse so much. So I really kind of wanted to join them, but I also didn't want to leave Salad, So anyway, I ended up playing on one single for them, and then they got in somebody who could commit.
Fair play. Gay Dad?
Gay Dad. I got headhunted for Gay Dad, They'd got signed to Ireland. Not to Ireland, sorry. They'd got signed to London Records. They'd been sent out on a couple of support tours, and the powers that be had decided they needed an extra member because James, who ended up being the keyboard player, he'd been the rhythm guitarist and had also played keyboards, and they were like, he's a great jazz pianist. They were like, why don't you just focus on that side and get someone else to play the guitar? And the manager had been asking around the industry, who could we get? And it just happened my name came up in a couple of places. So just kept getting, and I was still in salad at the time. And like I just said to you, I didn't want to leave salad, and I'd not joined night nurse properly because of that. But this guy was very persistent, and I had several meetings, and I met the band, and I went and rehearsed with them. And in the end, I was like, actually, this is great. Yeah, okay, I'm going to do this. That's, so I joined them.
I remember when they kind of, in that period is when I started working in HMV, and I just remember they were like everywhere. Like you couldn't listen to a radio show or look at the NME without seeing some kind of article on Gay Dad or an advert for a Gay Dad single or the album that eventually came out.
Yeah, it was quite a wild ride, really. It kind of felt like, I don't know, because this was like, post Oasis, and I think it felt like the record industry in general, it was post Oasis, and also streaming was about to be a thing, but wasn't yet really. And it almost felt like the last hurrah of the record industry. They were like, we need another massive band that's going to go massive, and they put a lot of money into Gay Dad. And me as somebody that had like joined them after they signed, and we had a year of touring and just being, support tours, but with the benefit of hotels and vans, tour buses and things that bands that are supporting at the Leicester Princess Charlotte wouldn't have had, generally. We had a really good year touring, and then suddenly, the first single's coming out and everyone's talking about us, and I just kind of almost felt like I'd just been plonked into this weird dream scenario, like it did feel kind of bizarre and quite exciting, and just, but very unreal.
Yeah, okay, great. That sounds like a great experience, but also, I guess, tinted, to a certain extent. Okay, Fosca?
That's my friend Dickon's band. Fosca, Dickon Edwards is a very, very interesting, very kind, very stylish friend of mine who, he was in this band called Orlando, and they split up, and he decided he was going to do his own thing. And Fosca had lots of incarnations. The first one, it was all boys, all men. And apart from, he got me in on guitar. And then it didn't really go anywhere. And he thought, actually, I think I need to be the singer. And I think I want more women in the band. So he kind of had a total rethink, and I stayed in it for a bit. And again, and then I was off doing other stuff. And he carried on with this thing of his band. They were like an indie band with very sort of erudite lyrics, but this kind of indie jangly band with, he did several albums with a band of mostly women. And then I came back in for the very end of that story. We did a few short tours and one final single, just me and him and Rachel Stevenson, who was his long-standing collaborator on keyboards. So that was I was there at the beginning, I was there at the end. I wasn't there for the whole long stretch of the career, though.
Yeah, nice to be there at the beginning and the end. I got you down as a bass player as well for Linus.
Yeah, for one EP. Linus was a wonderful band. My best ever male friend, Andy Roberts, was the guitarist and main songwriter in Linus, and he really, really tragically died in a hit and run many years ago now. So Linus is no more, but we keep the flame going. So both myself and Jen Donito, who was the bass player in Linus before I was, we quite often play Linus songs in our sets when we play gigs, because they were a great band. Yeah, I just played bass with them for one EP while Jen, who was the long-standing bass player, had left, and as I often do, I'll fill in a bit. I'm like, I can't be in your band forever, but I'll come and do this. It's great,
Spy 51?
Yeah, Spy 51 was the band I was in after Gay Dad, and they were a four-piece originally, and they had a bit of they played Reading Festival and things, and they had singles out on Fierce Panda, and then they'd gone down to a three-piece already. One guitarist had left, and then the other guitarist needed to leave, and so it was just the drummer and the singer, who also played bass, left, and I was up for it, and I joined them properly. And we did a single, a mini album, and an album, and gigs quite a lot. We were a great band. I remember one time we played at the garage, and as we were setting up and sound checking, and we did sound incredible. I have to say that because, well, I don't have to, but I am saying it. But I remember being on the stage thinking, we sound amazing. And the person doing the monitors was going, who are you signed to? We're going, we're not signed. She's going, no, come on. She basically thought we had been signed to a major label and we'd been sent along secretly to sort of like, and she wouldn't believe it. We were like, no, we're not signed yet. And she's like, come on, who's behind you? And that was kind of good because I was like, yeah, we do sound like that, don't we? But we weren't. I think we're just a bit hopeless at doing the kind of industry thing, because I mean we did get people from labels along to see us. Actually, thinking about it, this was a weird period where there were a lot of bands like Keane and Coldplay and stuff coming through. There was this kind of ballady kind of thing, and we about half of our set was really strong kind of ballad things like that, but the other half was really rocking and had a lot more energy. And I remember a couple of one in particular record company exec who came to one of our rehearsals. He was just confused by it, and he was like, unless we just did the stuff that sounded like Keane or Coldplay, he wasn't interested. Basically, was the vibe I got. And I'm like, well, that's a bit boring. I mean, that's not all what we're about. There's more to us than that. It just really depresses me when the record industry latch onto one thing and they want to replicate that. I mean, who wants to replicate something that's already out there?
Absolutely. Got the Priscillas.
Priscillas I played with. It was initially just for a tour of France. Priscillas have been going for years. They're still going now, actually. They've got a really good lineup now. Jen Brown O'Drag is the singer. She's been the key person throughout. And they're a kind of glammy pop band in the vein of, I don't know, in the vein of who? God, I hate thinking about this. They're a really good glammy poppy, punky band, and with really good hooks. And it was just a period of time where I was not doing very much, and I got this call one day. We're doing a tour in France next week, and we don't have a guitarist. Can you do it? And by next week, it was like in about 2 days' time, and they had a really long set they were doing for these shows. I had to learn about, I don't know, 20 songs or something ridiculous in 2 days. But it was great fun, and then we came back, and I carried on playing with them for a bit. But ultimately, that wasn't my band. It was a really good fun thing to do. Great catchy songs, great harmonies, and great riffs. So yeah, fun to play.
Great. I feel like I'm doing like This Is Your Life at the moment.
I feel like I'm talking too much about all these bands too, because I think you said like one line or something.
No, it's fine. I love it. I love it that you remember it with such fondness, and you can pinpoint things. I mean, it's really interesting. I got the New Royal Family, or the Famous Cox.
Yeah. So the New Royal Family was a band that my friend David Barnett formed originally for one gig only. He said, I'm doing a gig, it's going to be one gig only. I want to do a band for one gig. We're just going to play songs that I wrote when I was 15 or 16 or whatever, like when I wanted to be a punk and I was 15 years old in Scotland. Like, okay, great. So we did this one gig and it went really well. So we just ended another gig and another gig and another gig. And we basically, and all the songs we did were songs that he had written aged like 15, and they were and there were things like Scotland the Brave was one, which was like a Sex Pistols kind of anarchy. It was like Anarchy in the UK but for a Scottish teenager, and Anyone Fancy a Chocolate Digestive was another one. And we played they were really great fun gigs, and we off the back of that we got asked to play at an Adamant convention. I said, can you do a set of Adamant songs? And we thought, well, obviously the New Royal Family is the ideal name for a band that does Adamant songs, but the New Royal Family is the band that does David Barnett songs when he was 15. So we changed the name for the Adamant set to the Famous Cox, because we formed in the Famous Cock pub by Highbury and Islington Station.
That's brilliant. I got a few more, not too many more. Fallen Women?
Yeah, that's a band that's current at the moment. That's my friend Howdy Heels formed this band. Well, at the behest of John Doran from The Quietus, they were doing a party or a club night for when Marky Smith from The Fall turned 50. And they thought it'd be great if there was an all-female karaoke band playing songs of The Fall and people could get up and be Marky Smith. So Heidi put together the band, so I joined that band. And again, it was a thing where that one gig, it went so well. We're like, we've got to do another gig. And now it's become a kind of biannual tradition, really. We tend to do one, which is just like that, which is just, general public sign up to be Marky Smith. And then we quite often also do a charity one. Ever since Mark died, when he died, we decided to do a celebration of his life, and we would do it to raise money for cancer charities. And rather than have people randomly sign up, we would get people that we knew in music and comedy and TV and so on to come, who we knew loved the Fall. They came and did songs. So, people like Stuart Lee and Sharon Horgan and, various minor celebrities from pop groups to, I'm using this in inverted commas because they're just like bands that we're in. But, so that's a really good fun thing that we do from time to time.
I guess that ties in nicely to the high fives then, which sounds like a bit of a similar route.
Yeah, so that was when the Hives did their recent tour of the UK, they decided they wanted to have a tribute band or tribute bands playing at their after show parties. And my friend Pioneer Gear, who works for them, she just said she sort of put my name forward because of all the bands I've been in. We're like, Charley can probably form a band to do this. And sure enough, I did. We did 3 shows. It was brilliant. It was just basically learnt a load of Hive songs and went. 2 of them we just performed, and then one was again a karaoke one. We did a pre-show one before their Hammersmith show where we played, and Lily, who sings with us, sang some of them. But for others, we got people up, including this amazing kid who was like 10 years old and knew all of the lyrics. And yeah, good times.
That's amazing. I had a mate who was in that pub and he put up a video of his mate singing a song, and I was like, is that the High Fives? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I know Charley Stone. Yeah, it was funny when I watched that video back. He said it was amazing and it looked like a great atmosphere in the pub you were playing in. I've also got Keith, Top of the Pops, and his minor UK indie celebrity all-star backing band.
Yeah, Keith, Top of the Pops is the king of rock and roll, hands down. There is no one greater. Keith is actually responsible for a lot of the way I play guitar these days, to be honest. So Keith has this thing. He had this band. I met him when he recorded The Neural Family in his studio in Soho. And while I was there, he was talking about this band of his and how they he said, I just like playing gigs. I just ask people to show up who I know are in bands, and we don't have rehearsals. They just show up and we play. And I was like, I like playing gigs. I'll come and play. I went, all right, come and play next week then. And this was like a very long time ago. I don't know how long now. And Keith's gigs are amazing. He's a brilliant songwriter, and he's just really, really funny, and he's really kind and generous. And it can be anything between, I think the smallest gig I've done with him, it was just 3 of us. It was me and him and Les Carter Fruitbat from Carter, basically. And but the biggest one was we did one where I think there were 23 of us on the stage. Generally, there's about 10 of us on the stage. And yeah, there's no rehearsals, no sound checks. And it's a glorious cacophony of sound. But yeah, I think on one of my first gigs with him, I said, I was a bit embarrassed because I'd forgotten how some of the songs went and I just made loads of noise. And he just went, don't worry about it. Just remember, Charley Stone, anytime you do that, it's probably my favourite bit. And it just really freed me, and it just made me realise it doesn't matter. None of this matters. I can just play what I want. And and also I've ripped him off actually in my Keith rips off people too. It's a kind of in joke. He will sometimes borrow other people's bits of banter and claim them as his own. So I borrowed a bit of his banter and put it into one of my songs.
That's fantastic. I'll bring you up to date now. So the bands I know you're still active in or doing stuff with. So Desperate Journalist? Yeah,
Desperate Journalist is... if you've not heard Desperate Journalist, you should. They are reminiscent of bands like, The Cure and the Smiths and all those kind of things, and a lot of post-punk stuff. But very, very much. Joe who sings has got an incredible voice. Rob Hardy, who plays the guitar, he is a guitar genius. I think, of the level and the uniqueness of someone like, John McGeoch. He's got his own style that nobody else has. And yeah, they're a 4-piece, but after their third album, I think it was, they decided, because there were so many layers on it, they wanted to get someone else in to play live with them. And I'm friends with them and live locally, so I was the obvious choice really to join, which I love, because I was a fan of the band anyway, and they are my friends, like I said. So it's great. I just show up and play.
Amazing. Got Sleeper. So you're out on the road with Sleeper in the summer?
Yeah, I'll be doing some festivals with them again. Yeah, again, they are. I basically, when Sleeper reformed, I think the first time I went to see them, I was just so happy watching them. And I sort of immediately messaged Louise, who I'd known years before, but I hadn't seen for a long time, and said, if you ever need someone on guitar or bass, consider me interested. And she said, okay, that's great to know, actually, Charlie. And I didn't think of anything of it. And then several years later, she was like, actually, we need someone now. And I've been playing rhythm guitar with them ever since. So, they don't always do gigs as the big extended 6-piece. Sometimes they'll do, a 3-piece acoustic thing, or they'll do like just a stripped down 4-piece band and Louise plays guitar. But if we do a big gig on a festival stage or, a big tour, then I think they like to have the bigger sound. It has, me on rhythm guitar, so Louise can just sing, and Amy does keyboards and backing vocals, and it's wonderful. I love playing with them. Absolutely love it.
It's amazing. Got some great dates coming up in the summer with Sleeper, and also you have your actual band.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my actual band, because I decided during that lockdown that we had. And a lot of people started creative projects then, didn't they? And for me, it was more, I started just singing stuff online. And I've never done solo stuff. And I realised this is something I think I want to do, because I know how to be in a band. And I know how to just play guitar or play the bass or the keyboards and in a band on the stage. But being there on the stage on my own, that's kind of terrifying. And I was like, I want that challenge, So my first gig back after lockdown was a solo gig supporting Pioneer Gear at the Lexington in London. And then I was off. I was like, okay, I'm going to do loads of solo gigs. I'm going to do a solo thing. And after probably about 10 gigs, I was doing a gig down in Hastings or St Leonard's. And I just was on stage, and I decided to cover a couple of Modern Lover songs at that gig, as well as my own songs. I sort of top and tailed the set with Modern Lover songs, and I thought, my songs would be really cool with a bassist and a drummer. And I just immediately went on social media that night and sort of said to all my friends, I think I want to have a band. If anyone wants to be in my band, give me a shout. And loads of people replied. And basically, Martin, who plays bass with me, and Lily, who plays drums, when they replied, I was like, oh, God, yes, that's going to work. And it really does. So, yeah, I do a mixture. I still do a lot of solo gigs as well, because I like doing solo gigs. And I like, I like things to be quite fragile sometimes. And then sometimes I'm like, no, I want to do the band. I want to have the band here, and I want it to rock out a bit more. And, yeah, so a bit of both.
Brilliant. And I'm delighted to say that by the time this podcast goes out, the album, Here Comes the Actual Band, will be a few days old. So, Charlie, tell us about the album. There's 10 songs. Are they all new songs, or are they some songs you've been sitting on for a while, in addition to kind of some newer songs that you've written?
Yeah, it's a real mixture, because the final song on the album is literally the first song I ever wrote on electric guitar. That really hard to play electric guitar, I told you about that. I took months to learn to hold a bar chord. Once I'd finally been able to learn to play bar chords on it, I was like, right, I'm going to write a song with some bar chords. That was the song that I wrote, and I'd never managed to play it in a way that I liked with a band before. And I just happened to play it at a solo gig, and Martin, who plays bass with me, heard it and went, well, why don't we do that in the band? I went, really? And then we played it at the band, and for the first time in my life, it worked. And I went, oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that. So there's that one. And then there's a couple of others on the album, which are from an album that I wrote and demoed over this course of a month over 10 years ago now, and I've never actually released. But I've given them a new lease of life with the band, and then the others, they're all vary. It's just, I don't know, they're all from different periods. Some of them are very new, some of them were very old, but there were songs that worked in a specifically good way with the band, with what Martin and Lily brought to them, really added to it, and also they just all kind of sat well together. I thought, okay, this is good. This is like 10 songs that weren't written to go together. They were been written over the course of my life, but now in this moment they've become something that works as a whole. They very much do. It's an album of 10 songs in a specific order, kind of I wouldn't say all of the order is very specific, but some of it was very, as I was recording it, most of it I knew exactly how I wanted it sequenced as well. It felt very like, this is how this goes. And then I had to like fiddle a couple of them bits in the middle till it flowed right. But yeah, it's got its own arc, shall we say.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to hear a few tracks. Obviously, there's a few on Spotify. There was one that you put out a link for. Now sounds like a good opener. So when you say you sequenced it, you can hear Now is a good opening track, and I think it leads the way, from what I've heard, into the album. So I guess you've obviously released lots of albums before, Charley, but I guess this is your first delve into a solo world. How are you feeling then about having these songs almost out into the world, available for everyone to hear?
Sorry, I didn't hear all that because you went distorted.
Oh, okay. I was just saying, how do you feel then, I guess, on the eve of the album coming out, because it's not out yet, about these songs almost being pushed out into the world for everyone to listen to?
I don't know really. It's because like most of them have come out in some form already, right. Because most of them I've done a solo version of, which is quite different and quite fragile. I'm kind of just like impatient to get it out now. It's just like, I mean, it's kind of odd because I don't feel like it's in the past. I don't feel like, oh, I don't like this anymore. I really love it. I'm really happy with it. And it feels still very much a document of something that feels quite current. And yeah, I'm also like, but this is all old stuff. This is all like, I've kind of moved on from there, so I almost feel like it's already out, I think is what I'm getting at. I don't really feel like it's about to be unleashed on the world. I feel like it's been there for a while, but just not everyone's heard it yet.
And people can buy it, right, on physical. So I was looking on your Bandcamp page, and if people just don't have to stream it, so there's more to life than streaming, people can buy a physical copy of the album as well.
Yeah, a CD, which I'm kind of... Actually, that's one thing. I am kind of nervous about getting the CD, because that's the thing I haven't seen.
Right.
Everything else I've I know, but I how people do these unboxing videos these days, and I'm like, I'm not doing one of them. I'm kind of terrified to open that box when it comes.
It's really exciting. I can't wait to for people's reaction to it on when it comes out. And obviously, like I said, by the time this episode comes out, the album will be out that people can go and listen to. And you've got a few live dates as well, Charley, coming up, I guess, to support the album. Yeah.
Well, the first one is the very day after it comes out. And yet it's not the album launch, because we got booked to play my friend's band's album launch. And it's like, I'm not going to steal their thunder by also making it my album launch. So, but I thought, because I like to really mix things up with my sets. Anyway, all of my sets are different. So I thought, okay, it's Lemonade Sin's album launch. We're going to we'll play some songs from my album, and we're going to also play a load of random new stuff. It's going to be quite an eclectic set. Then we're going to do a gig, and that's at the Ivy House in Nunhead in South London on the 30th of May. Then on the 6th of June, we're going to Bristol, going to play at a place called the Golden Lion, supporting a band from Exeter called the Masonettes, who are pretty wonderful. I've never played with them, and I'm really excited about that. So that'll be our first. It won't be our first album one. Because we've been playing those songs from the album for a while. But anyway, that's the first time though that we'll have played as a band outside London. Because generally, when I get gigs outside London, and I've done quite a lot in Bristol, weirdly enough, I always just go on my own because it's quite expensive to travel and everything. But this time, first time the actual band plays outside London. Oh, apart from when we played a festival in High Wycombe. Okay, so not quite true. But then the key one, actual official album launch, which is on the 27th of June at the Cavendish Arms in Stockwell in South London. And that one we will play. I've decided we're going to play the entire album in order, like people do when they do their 20th anniversary tours. I'm just going to go, it's the 1 month anniversary. Here comes the actual band. So to celebrate, we're going to play all the tracks in order, and plus a couple of banging covers as well. So, you know, give it a bit of extra. And there's a couple of really cool bands playing at that too. Sassy Hire, who I absolutely love. And then the Jen Donito band, Jen, who I mentioned earlier. Jen was the bass player in Linus, who we spoke about at the beginning. So yeah, she does she calls it her annual gig. It's not always just one a year, but every now and then if she gets gigs, she goes, oh, okay, it's time for my annual gig. Yeah, I'll do my annual gig now.
Amazing. That'll be a great night on the 27th of June, Cavendish Arms. So make sure if you are around the London area, you get to that one. So Charley, I always like to ask my guests what they're currently listening to. So I know you've posted a lot about kind of what you're listening to and what you like, but what are you listening to at the moment? What's on your speakers or what's on your headphones?
The song, if we're talking about songs, and we kind of have to actually, because I've been listening to songs rather than albums at the moment, but there's one song in particular I've been listening to on a loop. I'm totally obsessed at the moment with the latest track from Darren Hayman. He's got a new band called The New Starts, and they got this song out called Under the Strip Lights, and I wake up with it in my head in the morning, and then I just have to listen to it several times over every day at the moment, it seems. And there's this band also that I saw play at the Night Owl in Finsbury Park recently, and I hadn't seen them before. They're from Bristol. They're called Shoon. That's spelled Shoun, and then you double it. And they were so brilliant. They were kind of they were that kind of slightly odd post-punk, so not kind of like gothy post-punk, but they're kind of, you know, rather than songy songs, they've got a lot of kind of disparate elements together that, God, this is why I'm not a music journalist, Steve. I hate talking about, but I'm listening to them on a loop. And also, I'm also going to give a shout out. There's another track I've been listening to loads. Holly Henderson, who is just someone who, she was playing in a band that I was repping a show for at the Lexington. And she mentioned that she did solo stuff as well. And I always just look people up when I get home. And there's this one song she's got on Spotify called Parade, which is brilliant. And again, I just keep listening to that on a loop. I've got this whole playlist actually on Spotify that it's called Current Obsessions, and it's generally got about 20 songs on it. There's generally about 20 songs that I just want to listen to over and over. But specifically also in this playlist, I only put in songs by bands. Well, I mostly only put songs by bands that don't have that many followers. Or they don't have a huge following. Because I kind of feel like if I'm obsessed with a Taylor Swift song or something, there's no point playing that constantly on, you know. So I just like, and I find a lot of bands that I'll find randomly, and I'll look at their thing, and it says like 12 followers or like, you know, 3 monthly listeners, and I'm like, how is no one listening to this? This is incredible. So the fact that I've got the kind of brain that when I find a song, I just want to hear it over and over and over for the dopamine. I feel like, well, I can put this to use because they need some plays. They need some plays on Spotify. So I'm going to buy it as well, but I'm going to listen to it on Spotify on a loop and give them a little bit of help with the algorithm.
Yeah, as you should do. We can always get the link to your playlist and put it in your episode description as well, which might get a few more people listening to it as well, because I love that idea. That's a really cool idea. So, Charley, this podcast is all about you collating your fantasy festival. Are you a big fan of festivals? Have you been to many?
I've been to loads. I mean, mostly performing in recent years. When I was younger, I obviously went to a lot more watching than performing. The last few years, especially playing with Sleeper, because Sleeper played quite a lot of festivals, quite a lot of random festivals, you know, like ones that you wouldn't necessarily have heard of unless you lived in the locality. I do love festivals. That's my answer. I do. I like them.
And now you get to collate your very own fantasy festival. So for any first-time listeners, Charley gets to collate her fantasy festival by choosing any 5 acts, one of whom must play one of their studio albums in full, and Charley gets to pick any song, which we'll call her encore, which all 5 acts can perform together to close her fantasy festival. So it's very simple. 5 acts take 5 time slots. So I had Chris Griffiths in our last episode from The Real People. He collated The Real People Festival. In his opening act, he picked the Lars. In his Super Seconds act, he picked Ocean Colour Scene. Midway Madness picked the Stone Roses. As his pre-headliners, he picked the Pretty Things and had them play SF Sorrow in 4. And for his headline act, he picked the Beatles and had all of his 5 acts play Day Tripper. So very simple for any first-time listeners. Like I said, Charley, you've been picked before as a fantasy festival headliner. So like I said, Chris and Faye from Speakeasy picked you to do a 2.5-hour set, and they picked you to do half an hour each from the actual band, Salad, Gay Dad, Desperate Journalist and Sleeper, which was an amazing way of getting so many songs into a headline act. So it's incredible what people can do and can come up with for their fantasy festival. So before we talk about any of your acts, Charley, we need to give your fantasy festival a name and a venue. So what are you going to call your fantasy festival?
I'm calling it A Cure for Time.
I like it.
I know that's not a very snappy title for a festival, but that's just what came to me and I stuck with it.
All right. We've got A Cure for Time, and Charley, you can hold this anywhere in the world, big, small, in the UK, out the UK, anywhere you want to hold it. The world is your oyster, literally, for this. So Charley, where are you going to take us for A Cure for Time? Yeah,
this was kind of hard. I mean, the whole thing was hard because there's so many different festivals I go to, and then I realised, okay, I kind of zoned in my head. There's a place that I played as festival with Sleeper a few years ago, at Ampthill Park in Bedfordshire, and there's two because this. I think the fact that it's a festival where I'm picking 5 bands. So I was looking. There are places I've gone to where there's lots of different stages and lots of different rooms, and I kind of can't really place 5 bands in my head when I'm thinking of a place that's got all those different elements. But a place with one stage as the focus, something that's going to be outside, it's one stage, and this place in Bedfordshire, Ampthill Park, there's 2 reasons I picked it. One is because I really like the topography of it there. There's the stage at the bottom of a kind of long slope. It's not a really steep slope, but it's quite enough of a gradient that if you're at the back, you're kind of like at the top of a hill looking down on the stage. So basically wherever you are, you can see. And as a short person, I like that. But also this place, when I played there with Sleeper, and I remember seeing this cross on the hill and feeling kind of magnetically drawn to it and thinking, I've got to go to that place. I've got to go there. And it was outside the site. So I kind of found a place where I could get out and spoke to security, said, I'm playing, but can I go out there? And it was like, okay, I'll let you out, And I went up this hill, up to this thing, and I took a photo of it and put it online. And my friend texted me back she went, Masquerade. And I was like, what? And she's like, that was the solution to Kit Williams' Masquerade. You're at St. Catherine's Cross. A Masquerade, I don't know if you know this book. It was in the 70s or 80s. It was a treasure hunt book, basically. Kit Williams drew these incredibly detailed drawings full of riddles. And he buried a golden hare somewhere in the UK, and you had to solve the riddles and find out where it was. And it was devilishly difficult. It took people years to solve it, but it was basically buried at Catherine's Cross, which marks the place where Catherine of Aragon was held after her marriage to Henry VIII was annulled. So, but I remember just having this kind of, I was so drawn to this thing without knowing what it was. So I think because of that, it feels kind of charged for me, this place. It's kind of got an energy to it. So that combination of a place that feels quite energetically charged, and that it's got the nice kind of the view down this gentle hill to the stage, so everyone can see what's going on. I thought that's a good place to have a festival that's like 5 bands on a stage that everyone comes to.
All right, sounds like a great venue. So that's where we're going for your fantasy festival. All right, before you pick your 5 acts in, Charley, I'm aware that it's quite hard to whittle down a fantasy festival into only 5 acts, but that's all we can do for you. Any bands or acts you want to shout out who you love but just aren't making it into A Cure for Time?
I mean, there's loads, obviously. If I was going to be doing a fantasy festival properly, for real, like go and plan a festival, it would probably be a really small festival with lots, as in like, it would be full of new bands, basically. It wouldn't be like big names. And so it was like, okay, so all the bands, there's loads of bands like Panic Pocket or Hurtling that I love, that I would, if I was booking a festival, I would put them on. They're not going. When I decided it was going to be this very kind of nostalgic thing, which is why I decided it was a cure for time, I had a specific idea about the time period and about what it means to me. And I thought, initially I was thinking of The Fall and of Sonic Youth and also The Cure, and that would have made sense with the title too. But none of those are playing. Also, Duran Duran are not playing because actually I feel like they'd be too up themselves. I love Duran Duran, but they're not playing my festival because they'll be, no, they're not doing it.
I reckon maybe we could put up that music video you spoke about earlier as like a prelude to your fantasy festival. So maybe we can have that video somewhere or some symbolisation for that video.
That's a good idea. That would work. That would actually work.
All right, we'll have that. We'll have a special video appearance of that video playing before your fantasy festival starts. All right, so it's 2:00 then, a cure for time. It's a lovely day. Everyone's got a lovely view. Your opening act about to come out, Charley. So who are you going to have open A Cure for Time?
I think I should confess something about my fantasy festival first of all, because I may be breaking the rules a bit here.
Okay.
Because it's the way I had to do it in the end. I've kind of pretty much poached several of the bands from the first festival I went to and given them a new headliner. I've kind of created, and this is the thing, it's like whenever I think of a festival, you know how sometimes you just go back to the first thing, your first love or whatever. I've got this kind of now, from thinking about this kind of dreamscape that has elements of the first festival I went to. So I'm plucking out, but also I was thinking, opening out, like you say, it's a nice sunny day, people are chilling out. The first ever festival I went to was Glastonbury 1989, and it was before Glastonbury was huge. It was still a hippie festival, and I went, but they decided to have an indie day for the first day, and so me and a couple of friends went along and did what we always did when we went to big gigs. We were like, first thing in the morning, we've got to get down the front, we've got to be at the front of the barrier. And I remember there's all these kind of like older people and hippies just kind of like putting up picnic blankets spread out around the picnic pyramid stage, kind of looking at us like, what are they doing, like up against the barrier? And come on, chill out, kids. It's like it's hours till evening. What's your problem? This wasn't the actual opening act that day, but quite early in the afternoon, this woman came out on the stage with an acoustic guitar and just sang and played. And I was totally mesmerised by her. She's kind of a big deal now, but she wasn't at the time. She just released her third album, which was the first album that really did anything. She'd been completely unknown before. And that was Lucinda Williams. And she was just there with her guitar. And it was just perfect, like some, afternoon at a festival, just draw people in. And I want to go back there. I want that.
All right, you're having it. Lucinda Williams opens your fantasy festival. First time, Charley, she's ever been chosen for a fantasy festival.
Well, there you go. I hope she's proud.
Making history. All right, Lucinda Williams is opening your fantasy festival. She's going to play from 2 till 3 o'clock. Great opening act. We'll take a half-hour break. That'll take us to 3:30, and it'll be time for your Super Seconds act, Charley. So who are you going to have in your Super Seconds act?
This would be one of my choices for any kind of festival that I was going to book. The first thing I would say is I want the original lineup of Throwing Muses. And the original lineup of Throwing Muses was also at that first festival that I went to, Glastonbury 1989. So that's just accidental. They were, and I'm like, okay, they would have been in anyway. Whatever the festival was, any festival, I would have them. Any fantasy festival, it was like you can have anyone. So I really so remember again that gig. I didn't know this band at the time, and this is another thing why this is hard for me to do, because a fantasy festival, to me, the best festivals I go to and the best experiences I have at festivals, at least half of them will be bands that I didn't know before. That's the joy of a festival to me. You go along and you see something you've never seen before, and they become your new favourite band. And that's certainly what happened with Throwing Muses. But But the original lineup of Throw Muses with Leslie Langston on the bass, who I think is the greatest bass player I've ever known. I just, that band, I would just love to see again anyway. But yeah, that first time I saw them at Glastonbury 1989, it affected me so much that I remember my face just started trembling. It was like the sound just kind of sent my whole body into spasms because it was just so intense. It was just like rippling through me, you know? So, but there again, they're a nice kind of afternoon. Well, they certainly were there. So that will work after Lucinda Williams, definitely.
Totally.
Because it did before.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great shout. Throwing Muses, again, first time, Charlie, Throwing Muses have been picked for a fantasy festival. So we've got 2 new acts on the roster. They're going to play from 3:30 to 4:30. Take another half-hour break. That takes us to 5 o'clock. Be time for your Midway Madness act. So who are we going to have play your Midway Madness act?
I've just realised just how much of a cheat this is, because I am basically just nicking the lineup from that first thing. But it is my fantasy, because my fantasy would be to go back and get the best bits of that festival. Yeah. You know, the thing that can never be repeated again. And so the next band that had that effect on me from that festival was, again, they weren't massive then. They are now. It was Pixies, the original lineup of the Pixies, and so they came on at that time. Listen to me. See, I am just repeating. And as I'm talking about, I'm aware. I am rather than creating a new thing, I am reminiscing on a past thing. And yet it is creating a new thing in my head, because it's imagining it in a different place and a different person, which is me as I am now, and a different time frame that we're in. I'm imagining transporting that. And that's why it's called A Cure for Time. It's like, it's creating this kind of capsule of something and pulling it into now.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. The Pixies, only their second Fantastival appearance, only the second time, amazingly, they've been picked, but a great pick for your Midway Madness slot. All right, we've got 3 acts down. We've got 2 acts to go. Your next act is going to be your pre-headline act. So we're going to get to play from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So Charlie, who is going to be your pre-headline act?
And this one is another element of fantasy, because I can't really envisage this would not have been a pre-headliner. And yet in my fantasy, they are. They have attained a level of greatness that they never quite had, maybe should have had. Who can say? Anyway, my favourite band at that age, and the reason I was at that first festival, but they're now being promoted to pre-headliners, was All About Eve. And it was All About Eve at the pinnacle of their kind of like, they were just about to release their second album. I think they debuted the song Road to Your Soul at that festival, and they came out, and it was kind of like, they were kind of like a gothic kind of Fleetwood Mac or something, you know, when they came out on that festival stage. And so I'm just envisaging this kind, exactly that, a gothic Fleetwood Mac as the big pre-headliner that everyone's like, oh yeah, you know, the night is really happening now.
That's all right. Great shout. All About Eve. Again, first time All About Eve have been picked for a fantasy festival. So amazing shout there. They're your pre-headliners. They're going to play from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We've got one more break to take, and then it'll be time at 8:30 for your headline act, who are going to give us 2.5 hours. So sometimes I can work out who someone's headline act's going to be. But with you, Charlie, I've got absolutely no idea where this is going, which is a great thing. So I guess don't leave us in suspense any longer. Who is going to headline A Cure for Time?
Well, I'm not. They would have been left in suspense. If you were an attendee of this festival, you would be left in suspense, because a key thing about this is they're going to be secret headliners. Yes. Because even, you know how I've described this festival, and you know it's in this beautiful park and everything, they would have always been too big for this, and it would have just turned into being about them. And it's not about them. It's a festival. Prince and the Revolution are headlining. They're going to come on, and in their 2.5 hour set, they're going to play the entirety of Purple Rain as their album in full.
That's a great.
How about that?
That's a great shout. Love Prince. Love that album. So, Charlie, why is he your headlining in, and why have you gone for that album in full in particular?
I just think it's one of the greatest albums ever. I also, I mean, I have seen Prince, but when he did the O2 some years back, I never saw Prince and the Revolution. And when I see concert footage of Prince and the Revolution, I just think I can't think of a band that did a better live show than them. I think it would have been incredible to be at one of those shows. So that is most bands that I could think to put in the fantasy thing. I mean, apart from, ones that, died before I got a chance to see them. Most bands I have seen at some point, that's a band. I did see Prince, but I didn't see Prince and the Revolution. And I want them on that lineup. I want them headlining. I want them playing that album in full. I want to be there. Yeah, and the fact that they're secret headliners too. Everyone's just like, oh, this has been a great day. I wonder who the secret headliner is. And then they come out and they do that. It would blow people's minds.
It would be. All right, that's a fantastic way to come at it. So Prince and the Revolution are headlining. They're going to play Purple Rain in full. And then at 11 o'clock, they're going to welcome back on stage All About Eve, the Pixies, Throwing Muses, and Lucinda Williams. Charlie, if you want to go out on stage with them, you're more than welcome to do so by yourself.
Oh, wow!
Or with the actual band, or with any incarnation of a selection of bands you can go back on stage with. But anyway, you get to pick what song ends your fantasy festival. It can be any song ever made by anyone in the world. So what song are you going to have all of your acts and yourself perform to close A Cure for Time?
I'm going to try and bend the rules so you can tell me if I'm allowed or not. But it's Prince, remember? Prince tends to, he comes back again and again, right? He doesn't do one song. I've got two songs that could segue into each other, right? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. It's no problem.
So basically, he's going to start because he comes back on, and this is just like this would just work so well with Prince and the Revolution. And I'm imagining him gradually bringing the rest of the acts on in this extended jam of Tobacco Road by Eric Burdon and War. Do you know that song?
Don't think so.
Right. When you check it out, you will see why. It's really, really funky and it's incredible. When I go on tour with Keith Top of the Pops and his minor UK indie celebrity all-star backing band, it is often our song off the road. And it's just like, it's the kind of song that you can just vibe on for ages. It's got this great riff all the way through. And I can just imagine Prince and his band leading them all through this, because you've got to have a big up-tempo one with Prince at the end. But then you see, you want to go out on this really beautiful thing right at the end. So in the same key, or at least, I don't know if it's in the same, it certainly feels like it's in the same key. I can definitely, I've played them back to back and they segue together really, really well. They come out of that and they go into Who Knows Where the Time Goes by Fairport Convention. And this, I've seen Julianne Regan sing this at a Fairport Convention gig. I think she'd do a really good, she'd be singing that along with Prince. So could Christian Hirsch. I'm imagining Lucinda Williams and Kim Deal on backing vocals. I can see Tim Brashino from All About Eve and Black Francis from the Pixies on 6-string and 12-string acoustic guitars. Tim would be on the 12-string, Black Francis would be on the 6-string. You've got Tanya Donnelly playing some nice little arpeggiated stuff. You've got Prince doing the most incredible guitar playing, and of course Wendy and Lisa. It would just be incredible. I can just see that, it's nighttime and they just do this thing, but coming out, this is the key thing, I think, especially coming out of this extended kind of jam version of Tobacco Road by Eric Burdon and Ward, just going into Who Knows Where the Time Goes, which of course totally encapsulates the whole idea of the festival, A Cure for Time. You see?
Full circle.
All ties in.
Full circle. Amazing. Yeah. That is incredible. All right, let's lock this one into the Fantastival Vaults then, Charlie. So we've got A Cure for Time taking place at Ansell Park in Bedfordshire. Opening act, we've got Lucinda Williams. Super Seconds, Throwing Muses. Midway Madness, we've got the Pixies. Pre-headlining, we've got All About Eve. Your headline act, there's going to be a secret, so we're not going to publicise it before, but Prince and the Revolution are going to walk on your stage to headline. They're going to play Purple Rain in full, and then for your encore, all of your 5 acts are going to play Tobacco Road and Who Knows Where the Time Goes. It sounds amazing to me. Charlie, you happy to lock that one into our Fantastival Vaults?
Oh my God, I want to go to it. And especially now you said I can join them at the end on the stage. Oh my God, yeah.
Absolutely. What a gig.
This is really happening, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. It's complete fantasy, amazing, incredible festival. So I guess, Charley, before we wrap this one up then, obviously by the time this goes out, the album will be here, which will be fantastic. Obviously, there's going to be lots going on. What do the next few months look like then? I guess what do the next pieces for you look like after, I guess, this podcast goes out?
Well, after this album comes out, I mean, there's going to be, I'm going to be doing some festival dates with Sleeper. I'm going to be, in terms of my own stuff, I've got like 2.5 different unfinished solo albums on my hard drive. I've been working on some of these songs with the actual band, and I think we will at some point do another album as the actual band. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to just bring out, just kind of like under the radar a bit, one of the solo ones, which some of the songs of which may end up on the next actual band album. Who can say? And who knows what else? Who knows? We wait with bated breath.
Yeah, we will see what happens. It's all about time, and like you said, you rounded that up in your fantasy festival really well. Charley, if anyone wants to follow you on social media or wants to keep abreast of all the info that is going on around you, what's the best place for people to do? Is there a website? Is it social? Where should people go and find you?
Sorry, you've gone totally,
You've
totally gone robotic. Hang on. Say it again.
If anyone wants to give you a follow, Charley, or wants to keep up to date with all the info from you, where's the best place for people to go and find you?
I think probably go to Bandcamp, the Bandcamp, find me on there. If you sign up, you can you sign up to follow the mailing list? I'm sure you can on there.
Yeah, you
definitely can if you download a song on there, and there's at least a couple of songs on there that you can just download for free if you give your name to the mailing list. Which I haven't even used the mailing list yet, so you're definitely not going to get spammed. But at some point, I'm going to go, hey, everyone, got an album, blah, blah, blah. But it'll be more interesting than that. It will be probably rambling, whimsical thoughts about stuff with the album sort of dotted in there somewhere. And then I'm on Twitter and Instagram as at Charleston51. Not really related to my name in a very strong, easily rememberable way, but that's rememberable. I'm making up words now. But yeah, those are my key social places. I get really fed up with Facebook these days. I can't be bothered with it. I do bother with it, but reluctantly. There you go.
What can you do? All right, so that is it, everyone. Thank you for listening to the 166th episode of the Fantastival Podcast. If you've enjoyed this one, which I'm sure you have because it's been the most enjoyable episode, you can subscribe and give the podcast a review on iTunes, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can follow the show, which is really important actually. So thanks to everyone who has followed the podcast, but if you don't, please make sure to do so. And you can also rate the show on Spotify, and you can also comment on the episode as well as Charley being on Twitter. So is the podcast. So give us a follow if you don't already at Fantastival P. And we are also on TikTok, and we do a Sunday morning video where I go out and walk in the park and talk about the episode. And if you're not on either of those and want to contact the pod, you can do so at fantastivalpodcast@outlook.com. Unfortunately, we don't play music on the pod, but I'll get a playlist from Charley of all her chosen acts. That'll be in your episode description. And I'll also get some more links from Charley with anything that she wants to put on there. So scroll down in the episode description and you'll find some lovely links there from Charley. So Charley, 166 done. It's been wonderful having you on. I've enjoyed talking. This is probably the guest where I've spoken about the most amount of acts ever in an episode. And it's been a wonderful fantasy festival. How have you found it?
Yeah, great. Very, very, very fun. Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you all the best with the album. I look forward to hearing it in full. And by the time this goes out, like I said, I would have done so. And I'm sure lots of other people will. Good luck for the future and the summer. And with the album, I look forward to seeing what's in store for you in the future. So I'll be back next week with episode number 167. So please make sure to join me for that one. But until then, stay safe, my Fantastival friends. Please continue to spread the word. And that word is Fantastival. Thanks for listening.